Swime grooving to the tunes over here.
Blues Brothers.
All right, we talked a lot of Phillies today. We'll continue that, although half the things about the Phillies have to do with on the field. So we'll try to get what's going on with the current Phillies. Ryan Lawrence from Philly Voice wrote a very interesting, provocative thinking piece about Carlos Ruiz potentially being traded. And Carlos Ruiz is one of many guys who could be traded. So let's bring Ryan in here. Ryan, how you doing this afternoon?
Good. What's going on, guys?
Pretty good. So I was reading your article today, and you were talking about the fact that Carlos Ruiz would be very appealing, but how this is very a major conflicting thing for him because, like Ryan Howard, he's only ever played and had success with one ball club, and now he's in a situation where he's not getting much playing time, but there are other teams around baseball who need good catchers.
Right. Yeah, it's an important position. I mean, it's one of those positions where, it isn't only about what you do offensively. It's about, handling a pitching staff and, just having that kind of that rapport with the pitching staff that he is just known for. I mean, he's famous for it. Every pitcher swears by him. He is a, just like there are players, managers, there are also pitchers, catchers, and that's exactly what Carlos Ruiz is. And I think it's a lot similar to Chase Utley's situation last year where you looked at it and you said, I don't know how much value this guy's going to have on the open market, but I think he brings the intangibles like Utley does that can certainly help a team. And, hey, if a team has a vacancy at catcher, as some teams do right now, including Cleveland, who I mentioned, it feels like an obvious fit. So 2-month rental for Carlos Ruiz, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't take a chance on that if you were a contending team.
Do you think also the fact that the Phillies have a few different guys who could be available may also kind of generate interest in Ruiz just because of the fact that there will be a lot of people coming to see other players, and then when Carlos Ruiz plays, it may generate interest for him as well?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that, most scouts kind of understand what he's all about. I mean, he's been around long enough that, but yeah, I mean, it can't hurt if you're here and you watch and he jumps out on the radars. I mean, example, in the story that I wrote, I posted a video and it just happened to be Carlos Ruiz hitting a double against the Indians. Well, they saw him up close and personal. They kind of know that, there is still some offensive skills there. Last year he had a terrible year, but he bounced back pretty nicely. Well, when he's played this year, he's hit some. And again, you're not asking him to go be a savior of your lineup if you're trading for him. You're asking him to just be a piece. And those guys get traded too. I mean, when the Phillies made all those trades and added different pieces when they were a contending team, it wasn't all Cliff Lees and Roy Oswalt and Hunter Pence's. They also added guys like Matt Stairs and like Scott Air and, I'm trying to remember, Mike Sweeney. So, I mean, you can trade for role players too, and I think that's exactly what Ruiz could be for a team.
One of the guys has been brought up recently. We had Phillies assistant general manager Scott Profok on the show yesterday, Ryan, and he randomly just offered up a guy who could be traded, and that's Peter Bourjos. He talked about the fact that Bourjos has gained himself a little bit of a market because of his hitting recently and the fact that he's fielded so well that he could be a guy that teams may inquire for. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he fits the exact profile that I was just talking about, like a guy that, again, doesn't have to be the savior, but could be a very good role player. And, might not even have to start for a team, but that could work in an outfield rotation. And, again, the defense is so good that maybe you could start for a team. I mean, there are some teams that get enough offense at every other position they could afford to have a very good, even elite, you could say, outfielder. I mean, he gets every ball out there, and that really makes a difference at the end of the year when, those balls that aren't dropping in for singles, that you're cutting off, so they are just singles and not doubles or triples. I mean, all of that adds up. And obviously he can run the bases a little bit too, so he can bring that kind of pinch running element. And obviously the Phillies would be motivated to trade him because he's a free agent at the end of the year, and they have some other bats coming. I think this time next year, Nick Williams will certainly be around. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Dylan Cousins is around this time next year. So they have outfielders coming through the minor league, and they obviously have a Double Herrera on this team too. So there's only so many spots, and I really think that they would like to see Nick Williams before the end of this year. So by moving Bourjos, you're creating a vacancy that could be filled.
Hey, Ryan, this is Billy Schweim. Ryan, with the exception of the pitchers, not all pitchers, but some of the the guys that are the future of the Phillies, with the exception of those guys, when the everyday players, are there any guys that are untouchable on the Phillies?
Yeah, I don't know. like to put the word untouchable on anybody. I mean, you could even say that the best player in baseball, Mike Trout, isn't an untouchable because he plays on a team that they can move him and, do like a Cole Hamels-like trade, and probably even do better than that because of who he is and how young he is. And you can rebuild that franchise, which they might need to do. You know what I mean? So because of that, I don't think, and maybe you could say Clayton Kershaw. I would probably say he's untouchable because of the team he plays for and the market he's in. But yeah, I can't think that there's anybody on this list that's untouchable. I mean, even if you really like what Michael Franco can do, even if you really have high expectations for Aaron Nola down in the minor league, even if you really, really like J.P. Crawford and think he's going to be your shortstop for the next 15 years, I don't think anybody's untouchable. I mean, I think you listen on anything. I mean, you never know what a team's going to present to you, so you don't say this player is off limits because you don't know. I mean, you make everybody available, and someone could come to you and they can give you something intriguing, and then all of a sudden that player isn't untouchable because you never knew that was the possibility of what you get back for him. So I don't really like to use that word, untouchable. I think the Phillies once used something like that in reference to Dominic Brown, and, obviously that's a lesson there. That guy that, and he was a top prospect, and they didn't have a lot of top prospects at the time, so you could certainly see why they felt that way at the time. But, prospects are just prospects. I mean, you don't know how anybody's going to pan out. I mean, all those guys they got back for Cole Hamels, there's no guarantee that all those guys are going to pan out. So, no one's an untouchable.
Well, unless somebody knocks your socks off by giving you something for, a Dubal Herrera or a Maikel Franco, I would imagine those guys, aren't they the future of the Phillies?
I'm not really sure you say that, but, Dubal Herrera, for example, and he can fall into that. And he's never been there. So that's more value than the guy I'm going to mention. But look at Shane Giles. I don't think anybody this time a year ago would think they would move a guy like that, a guy that's under club control, who's not even arbitration eligible yet, who looks like the closer of the future. But again, you make him available, and a team's going to give you 5 pitchers back for him. You can't help but make that deal. So if you're the Phillies, say Roman Quinn right now was absolutely tearing it up in the minor leagues. Instead, he's hurt, like he's had a history of getting hurt. But if Roman Quinn was tearing it up in the minor leagues right now, and he plays a Gold Glove caliber center field, yeah, I don't think you certainly make a Dubal Herrera available. I'm not saying you're definitely going to trade him, but there's nothing wrong with making a guy available because, again, you don't know where the team's going to present to you, and I think that the Shane Giles example is it's a great example of that. That you don't know what this guy's value is going to be unless you put him out there. So of course you put everybody out there just to gauge the value. It doesn't mean you're going to trade them. It can't hurt to see what the value is.
We're talking with Ryan Lawrence. You can check out his articles over at PhillyVoice.com. He covers the Phillies. Ryan, I wanted to ask you about, we know about Jeremy Hellickson potentially getting traded, but the guy who's been synced up with him in the pitching rotation in the minors is Jake Thompson. And I wanted to get from you, I know you've been watching some of Jake Thompson in the minors. I wanted to get from you your impressions of Thompson, about how he's pitched down there and how you think he can do in the majors.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, the one thing, he's had a lot of success. Biggest ERA in the last 9 starts in AAA it's under 1. It might even be close to 0.5. I mean, he's just crushing it in the International League right now. Again, the International League is not the Major League, though. I think the one thing that doesn't necessarily have or has shown quite yet is the strikeout stuff. That's a little bit worrisome because, pitching the contact's a lot easier at AAA than it will be up here. But I'm not saying he's not going to have success when he comes out of here. I'm definitely not saying that. I think that he deserves a look. I think he's going to get a look. The vacancy just isn't there right now. I think it could come very soon. I think this will be Jeremy Hellickson's last start in the Phillies uniform at home, simply because they go on the road on Friday and they don't return until after the trade deadline. So I think that Thompson will be here, in place of Hellickson after Hellickson is traded. I don't think there's any doubt that Jeremy Hellickson's going to get traded.
Ryan, I wanted to ask you also about the play on the field. The Phillies have 2 straight nights. They spoiled pitching performances. Aaron Nola, after 14 days he was off, and now he comes back. He looks like the old Aaron Nola. Velasquez looks solid, but in the extra innings, the Phillies failed to hold on. So I want to know, is this something that's just kind of like the offense failing to come around, or is the team maybe getting a little too tight?
I mean, it's really no different to when Cole Hamels was having all the stuff he was having for the last 4 or 5 years, and he wasn't getting the offensive support. It's just there's different pitchers in his place right now, and guys like Nola and Velasquez. So, I mean, this has kind of been epidemic might be a little bit strong, but it's kind of been what the Phillies have been since, 2012. they don't score a lot of runs, and they're in a bit of a transition, kind of waiting for guys like Crawford and Williams and then those guys to get here to the major leagues. And they have a lot of young players that are still learning their ways in the big leagues. I mean, Michael Franco is far from a finished product. Same thing with Tommy Joseph. Same thing with even Udubo Herrera. These guys are young players that are going to learn at the big leagues, just like Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, and Chase Utley did 10 years ago. So, you just kind of have to be patient with the young guys. And when this team is ready to win, then the front office is going to go, and they're going to go add those complementary pieces. They're going to go and they're going to sign free agents that can, help bolster the lineup. But I think, you just kind of have to take it for what it is right now. This is a rebuilding team, and they're very well aware that they're a rebuilding team, the front office is. So, they're letting these guys get an opportunity, and they're not going to rush the prospects to get here. They're going to give some of these other guys like Bourjos and Ashley and some other guys that you might consider placeholders. Those guys are going to play until those prospects are deemed ready.
Ryan, you're around the team all the time, and you see the demeanor of the guys. Is this time of year a tough time for these guys, a team that's rebuilding, to play knowing that they might be moved? I mean, do you think that's for the reason why they get tight around this time of year?
I don't know about that. I just think it's a long season. I mean, you're going to have your peaks and valleys. Any team, any stage, if they're contenders, if they're rebuilding, whatever, wherever they are. So I just think that, the fact of the matter is the Phillies just don't have the offensive talent that, some of the other teams like the Marlins and the Mets and the Nationals have, the Cubs, list on, on down the list in the National League. It's just who they are. So I don't necessarily think anybody's getting tight. I just think it's kind of who they are as major league players. I mean, I love what Freddie Galvis brings to the table every day as a defensive shortstop, but, he's a 240 hitter probably at best. So he kind of is what he is, and I don't mean to pick on him, but you go on and look at the Phillies lineup on an everyday basis, the numbers don't lie. I mean, a lot of these guys just, to quote Dennis Green, are who we thought they are, and, it's just what you have to deal with until, again, those prospects get here. So I don't necessarily know if anybody's pressing. I just think that this is just kind of who these guys are.
And what do you think the future holds for a guy like Cameron Rupp, who's really starting to play some good baseball? He's batting .278, and he's he's been playing really well defensively behind the plate. What do you think the future holds for him? Do you think the Phillies going to stick with him and have him be part of the future?
Well, yeah, this kind of brings the conversation full circle because, I mean, that's the reason Ruiz isn't playing, and just like Ryan Howard isn't playing as much, is that they need to see what guys like Cameron Rupp and Tommy Joseph can do. And then Cameron Rupp has gotten a lot of playing time this year because they want to see what he can do. And he's certainly proven that right now that he's had his stuff in the big leagues. But I don't know if 3 months makes you a proven big league player either. So I think that, you have to see how he finishes the year. Let's see how he does in the final 2 months of the season. And if he's still where he is offensively at the end of September like he is right now, then, yeah, you can make an argument that he should certainly be the starting catcher going into next year. I don't really think he won't be at this stage just because I think the prospects need a little bit more time. But, yeah, I mean, everybody wants to, put a label on a guy like catcher of the future. I think I've certainly probably put that label on a guy like Jorge Alfaro, who was kind of the lead guy they got back in Nicole Hamill's deal, and the guy has a lot of talent. But, hey, credit Cameron Rupp. He wants to be the catcher of the future. Who wouldn't want to be? Just like Cody Ashley wants to be the outfitter of the future, just like Freddie Galvis wants to be, shortstop of the future. All these guys are playing for their careers, for jobs in the big leagues, and even if it's not here, for jobs elsewhere. So I think you got to give Cameron Rupp a lot of credit for how he's responded this year. And regardless where he's at, say a year from now, 2 years from now, what he's doing right now is he's putting himself in a pretty good position to be in the big leagues 2 years from now, whether it's with the Phillies or someone else.
And that's why I asked you because I mean he's starting to hit the ball real well. He's got 9 home runs, and he's his batting average has come up. He's playing well defensively. And he's taking some hits at the plate. And I just thought that he's solidifying himself as a catcher. I know Alfaro is the big guy, but that they hope will come up. But Cameron Rupp's really doing a job convincing otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. And then Andrew Knapp's another guy. He's another guy that's on the radar. Had a monster year last year in the minor leagues. This year he's handled himself okay, and I don't think he played in the AAA All-Star game, I think. So, yeah, I mean, there are guys knocking on the door, but, again, that's what these players that are on the roster right now, they don't want to be considered placeholders. They want to be considered guys that the Phillies can count on in years to come. So credit to a guy like Rupp for taking advantage of it. Like I said, you can look on down the lineup and you can see what these guys are by looking at their numbers. And to Rupp's credit, this is what he is right now. And if he's still that guy 2 months from now, he's making a pretty strong case for himself.
We've been talking with Ryan Lawrence. You can follow him on Twitter at RyanLawrence21. He covers the Phillies for PhillyVoice.com. Ryan, appreciate you joining the show this afternoon.
Okay, no problem, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
You too.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Ryan.
the game tonight.
So, I mean, everybody's playing for, obviously, everybody's playing for their